Working at a finance company, one day I was called by my boss, Tom. A secondment. That's right. Well, go to your best. No, but the secondment is in eldercare. The company I work for operates a subsidiary that manages nursing homes. I, with no experience in caregiving, can't possibly work there. Well, that's how it is, Tom said, patting my shoulder sympathetically. A secondment, also known as a way to get rid of someone. In other words, I was effectively being fired. My name is Kevin. A pitiable 43-year-old suddenly let go from his job. I understand that eldercare is an indispensable job in society. But having worked in finance for over 20 years, I still want to stay in this field. So, I reluctantly submitted my resignation. I knew that the company had been moving towards layoffs due to the recession, but I never thought I'd be targeted. I told my wife about it when I got home. Fired? Well, it can't be helped. Fortunately, my wife took the news quite calmly. But you need to find a new job as soon as possible. I know. We both looked at our daughter, Emily, watching TV in the living room. She just started elementary school this year. For my beloved family, I began job hunting the next day. At 43, I struggled to find a job. Dad, you've been home every day recently. That's nice. My daughter said this while we were playing, and it caught me off guard. Well, yeah, even so, Dad's going through a tough time. I replied with a forced laugh. I need to be employed soon. Just then, my phone rang. Hello, it was a company where I had recently got interviewed. The only one where I had reached the final round. The decision on whether I got the job or not was about to be announced. A moment of intense tension. Then, from the other end of the line, the word hired came through. Finally, I was no longer unemployment. When I told my wife, she said, "Congratulations. Oh, what a relief. Looks like I start next week." Oh, is that so? Let's celebrate on your first day of work then. At that moment, Emily, holding her toy, raised her arms in joy and said, "A celebration, yay," making us both laugh. And then, on my first day, a mix of slight nervousness and anticipation filled my chest. By the way, my new job is also in finance. I worked at a fairly large corporation before. Despite my age, my experience there led to my hiring. As I entered the company, the receptionist greeted me. "Let me show you around," she said, leading me to my new boss, named Jake. As I wondered what kind of person he would be. "Are you the new guy?" Yes. Nice to meet you, I'm Kevin." I was surprised that Jake was quite young. 30, no, maybe in his 20s. He must be exceptionally talented. Then, Jake looked at me and sighed in disappointment, saying, "Kevin, how old are you?" Well, as I wrote in my resume, 43 years old. 43, hey, I wasn't informed about this. Jake said this and looked at the receptionist, but she too seemed unsure how to react. I completely trusted HR with this. They said something about an exciting new hire coming, but why hire an old guy like him? They really should have consulted me first, he muttered, making my blood boil. I may not be young, but I will use my experience to do what I can. Then, Jake laughed abruptly. "I heard your previous company went through a major restructuring. It was just a layoff to get rid of unwanted employees, right?" At Jake's words, I choked and said, unable to find words. "So, you got lucky and got fired. Then you desperately came to interview with us. An employee from a declining company. You're only good for menial tasks." He smirked mockingly and said, "We don't need losers here." "What? What's that? You gonna talk back to your boss? If you get kicked out of here too, you'll have nowhere left, right?" What Jake said was true. To protect my family, I have no choice but to work under Jake. But the words that came out of my mouth were, "I'd rather not, thank you." Jake's smile disappeared. Working under someone who complains about age isn't going to benefit me. Plus, you disparaged the company I work for as a declining company. A company that can't respect its competitors will eventually fail because of young, ignorant, and arrogant people like you. Jake was enraged and said, "What did you say?" But I had already made up my mind. When I glared back, he seemed a bit intimidated and faltered. "I'm sorry we couldn't come to an agreement. I'll be leaving now." I said this and left the room. I ended up quitting on my first day. As I approached home, I regained my composure. What have I done? What should I do now? Even though I was distraught, I couldn't go back to that company. I'm home. Hearing my heavy voice, my wife, who was in the living room, greeted me with a surprised look. "What's wrong? Did you forget something?" As my wife served a cup of coffee, I told her I got heated and left the company because of some cocky young boss. She got angry on my behalf, saying, "What? That's infuriating. If that's how it is, let's get you into a better company and show them. There's surely a company that will appreciate your strengths. If needed, I'll work too. Let's work on this together." She patted my shoulder reassuringly. Her words gave me solace, and I felt motivated to resume my job search. When our daughter returned from school, she said, "Oh, Dad's off work again." But this time I was determined to find a better job. I'll start over once more. That was what I was thinking when an unexpected event occurred. That evening, while relaxing with my family after dinner, the doorbell rang at an unusual time. It was rare for someone to ring the doorbell at that hour. I answered the door. "Hello, who is it?" There stood a young woman, apologizing. "Sorry for bothering you so late." I exclaimed, in surprise. It was Sarah, the receptionist from this morning. "My husband was extremely rude this morning, and I'm really sorry about that," she said. You're Jake's wife." She apologized again. She had watched me during that intense situation, noticing that I remained polite to the end. She praised me, saying she thought I was a truly wonderful person. It's a waste not to hire someone who can be courteous to everyone. So, I personally appealed to Mr. Johnson, the president. He has agreed, so I came here to invite you back. She had come all the way to scout me. True, I was polite, but I was also a bit sarcastic towards Jake, so whether I was truly courteous is debatable. "Mr. Johnson hasn't received your resignation yet. He, along with apologizing, would like to meet you again. Could you come to the office tomorrow?" I scratched my head, feeling a bit troubled. I was angry at Jake's attitude, but it's hard to outright refuse when asked so humbly. When I said, "I'll visit the office tomorrow," she looked relieved. The next day, Sarah, who had visited me yesterday, was waiting for me at the office. "I've been waiting for you," she said, leading me straight to the president's office. We then took the elevator to the top floor, where the president's office was located. "Excuse me, I've brought Kevin," she said, knocking on the door. A voice said, "Come in." Inside, there was a robust-looking man and Jake, who had been unpleasant to me. Upon seeing me, Jake said, "I'm terribly sorry for my rudeness yesterday," although he still seemed a bit arrogant. I felt a bit disgusted seeing Jake, but was somewhat taken aback by his apology. Then, Mr. Johnson also apologized. "I'm really sorry for what my son did," he said, to which I responded with surprise. Your son?" I looked back and forth between Mr. Johnson and Jake. They did resemble each other. Come to think of it, Emily had mentioned that she personally persuaded Mr. Johnson to keep me at the company. Being his daughter-in-law might have made it easier for her to convince him. Then Jake was asked to leave, and I remained with Mr. Johnson and Emily. That son of mine has always been too presumptuous, but he's still my beloved child. I wanted him to do well in this company. Mr. Johnson said, sighing with concern. Apparently, Jake, despite being capable, was impulsive and often acted alone, leading to discontent and resignations of talented people. Ideally, managers should have reprimanded him, but given he was the president's son, it was difficult for anyone to speak up, allowing his behavior to go unchecked. Mr. Johnson was considering how to deal with his son when he heard from Sarah that someone sternly reprimanded his son. "That was me yesterday. You told my son he was just a young man living on pride without knowing the world." Frankly, I was surprised, even impressed. What my son lacks is advice from a senior who, despite having family and sudden unemployment, stands up again. "Kevin, would you please join our company and teach the younger generation what it means to be a professional? And could you strictly guide my son too?" Mr. Johnson asked me, leaving me flustered. I glanced at Sarah, who also said, "Please stop my husband if he gets out of hand." "Oh, okay, I'll do my best." In the end, I decided to stay. I then joined the same department as Jake. Immediately, Jake's recklessness began. "That's why I told you to pass this project." He was mercilessly angry at a junior, wielding a rolled-up paper like a baton. Other managers pretended not to see. Indeed, it was a hostile atmosphere. Sorry. As the junior apologized, Jake raised the paper to hit again, but I stopped him. "Jake, this is too much." What is it, Kevin?" "From my experience, that project won't pass. It's better to move on quickly. Isn't that what we should teach our juniors?" At my words, Jake seemed dissatisfied and muttered, "Humph," but he unrolled the paper he had been holding. "It kind of feels like I feel like a teacher guiding a mischievous kid." "All right, let's move on to the next, Jake." As I patted Jake's shoulder with a laugh, he quickly scurried away. Everyone looked at me with respect for standing up to the president's son. Sigh. It seems I'll have to work hard at guiding this son for a while. However, a year later, Jake gradually became less abrasive and started to grow as a person. The atmosphere at the company improved significantly, and Sarah thanked me, saying, "My husband seems calm at home too." Then, Mr. Johnson assigned me to a different department with a new position. I guess it's what you'd call a rapid promotion. My salary increased, and my wife was very pleased. "Thank you for everything." Jake said this to me before I transferred. I don't know if he'll become the president one day, but no matter how important he becomes, I want to keep pointing out any mistakes he makes. Living for over 40 years and getting fired taught me one thing. It turns out I'm pretty good at taking care of others. I want to use this newfound talent to teach the younger generation what being a professional is all about. Even an old guy like me still has a lot to offer.